Hey folks, BlackCross here, and welcome back to another video game review, guys. And today's video review, I am very excited to finally talk about this one. And you probably remember me talking about this for quite a long while. And it is Black Myth Wukong. Oh my gosh, I literally planned a vacation week off with Black Myth Wukong, and I was able to play it and beat it. I didn't get everything, and there's still technically like secret bosses to encounter and stuff of that nature. But overall, in terms of what I've been able to do and how I've been able to play it and stuff like that, I've enjoyed this game more than I care to admit. I don't know how to explain this, but I've had a wonderful time with this game. So there's a few things that probably needs to be explained, some questions to be answered. Like the biggest one, is this Souls-like? In terms of formula-wise, it technically kinda is, but at the same time, too, it's more of a Sekiro type thing, Sekiro, if you remember, was made from Software, and while, yes, it does have Souls-like formula and Souls-like properties, it was kind of like its own thing, technically. And that's kind of what this is, Black Myth Wukong very much kind of feels that same way, in the sense of, A, when you die, you do spawn back to the shrine that you last was at. B, is open linear, basically meaning that you explore the area to your heart's content up until you get to, like, bosses and stuff of the nature and all that stuff. You have freedom of being able to level up and stuff like that, leveling up your moves and everything, and also being able to upgrade your armor and stuff of the nature. So it's one of those things where it's like, there are elements, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's purely Souls-like. It's kind of its own thing. The only reason why people are saying it's a Souls-like game is the difficulty. And I wouldn't say that it's difficult in the sense of like, oh yeah, it's Souls-like, it's going to be hard. No, it's hard in the sense of situational. What do I mean by that? Well, first and foremost, let's talk about the gameplay in genuine. Black Myth Wukong, the Wukong character itself, is so entertaining to play as. Like, the moveset in terms of how Wukong wields the staff, it's one of those things where it's like, I enjoy the gameplay style, but I love it even more so being able to enhance the abilities. Like, that's the cool part about it in this game, is the fact that you enhance Wukong's natural abilities, You have a standard ability, but there are more improvements to how Wukong can fight. In some ways, it's more of stamina usage. It prevents using up all of your stamina in order to do better moves and stuff of that nature and stuff. You unlock new different moves, such as the pole stance and the pole thrust, as well as the pole smash. There are also some enhanced abilities where it increases your attack or HP. There are a lot of ways to do it, but the funny thing is, they're not all permanent. You can customize it however way you want to. Say, for example, you're stuck on a boss, and for some reason you just can't seem to beat it. You can just turn around, go to the shrine, and reassign all of your sparks, which is essentially your skill points, to whatever skills you want to put on and stuff like that. So, for example, there might be one or two bosses that you might encounter where you've had trouble with. Well, you can respec them and reassign them to different abilities to your playstyle. And that is unique in my personal opinion. In most games, we're used to seeing it just be like, you gotta leave it at this stat unless you have like either a certain currency or a particular item that allows you to do this. In this case, no, you just go to the shrine and respec it however way you want to. And that's really awesome. You have freedom of being able to customize Wukong however way you feel like you want to customize them and stuff. And I really like that. Even more so, you can actually have like a level system, where you do enhance the HP, the stamina, the mana, the defense, all that stuff by using these things known as pills. These pills basically enhance Wukong's status, per se. Whether it's to endure the four banes, being that of Scorch, Shock, Poison, or even for that matter, Frost. It's one of those things where it's like, even though, yeah, you do assign those points to those areas and stuff like that, they're not permanent either. You can reassign them however way you want to as well. Yes, does it require currency, which is will in the game's currency system? It's one of those things where it's like, so long as you've got what's needed, you can realign them however way you want to, you know? And it really based on your playstyle. And I really love that. Probably the best part about Wukong's element is that it's pretty much straightforward. Straightforward as in, basically, you have a monkey, you have a stick, you hit boss with stick, that's it. Pretty much straightforward. But I love it, the fact that not only is it straightforward, but also too, there are a lot of bosses in this game. And I know some people will have mixed opinions about this and all that stuff. But in my opinion is this, is that I'm fairly a simple guy. You give me a game that has a lot of awesome bosses, I'm a happy guy. I'm a very happy guy. And whenever the game was fixing to come out and stuff like that, and there was like people that was already getting review copies and stuff, and they were saying there are technically over 80 bosses, I'm like, I'm already excited for this one. You don't have to talk about it anymore. I'm already hyped for this. And it's just so insane. Now, I will say this much as this, is that yes, there is a level of challenge in this game. But as I said earlier before, because of what all you're able to do, it explains the difficulty. And there are some cases where it's not meant to be this hard. You're meant to explore the area to your heart's content. Because there are certain areas and certain bosses that give off certain items to help you progress through the game. For example, in like the first 4 chapters, there are technically items that are supposed to help you beat the boss of the chapter itself, the final boss of the chapter. And those items will help you tremendously. And once you do those things, it's not that hard. You just gotta explore it to your heart's content. If you get, it's sort of like Elden Ring in a way. You know how one of the best features about Elden Ring is that, yes, it's a Souls game, but really if you just go back and explore everything else before you progress through the main thing, it's not as bad, you know? And that's one of the features that Wukong has, is the fact that yes, you can get stuck on a boss. Yes, there will be occasions where you might get stuck on 1 or 2. But what you can do is just explore the area, because there'll be a ton of other bosses that you can fight. There'll be other items that you might find that can help you survive. And again, it's just one of those things where it's just situational. And really based on the gameplay style of Wukong, that's basically its highest point. It's the fact that when you get to a point of getting used to the gameplay style and know how to use the gameplay to your advantage, you can easily trample bosses and not even mean to. It's really wonderful, and I absolutely love it. I also love the design of this game. Like, the game's beautiful on its own. The game is so beautiful, it's so amazing, and on the very last chapter, I don't want to spoil too much for you, but it's so cinematic. I have no words to explain it other than the fact of, like, they're the reason why it took as long as it did to get to this point. It's so beautiful. I love how it looks. But also, too, the boss designs of all the enemies and everything like that, I love how they all look. They all look absolutely amazing, beautiful to look at, and fun to fight. I love it. However, though, with all good things, I do have to point out a few small nitpicks here and there. So, the difficulty, yes, I will understand that may be something that some people may or may not like. I completely understand that, but like I said before, it's very situational. And depending on how deep you go, and depending on how well you're prepared and stuff like that, it doesn't have to be as bad, nor does it have to be as hard. The game is very forgiving in terms of giving you a chance to be able to prepare yourself to fight some of these harder encounters. So really, difficulty-wise, it makes sense. And being able to experiment with all the different moves and stuff, I like that feature. So basically, difficulty isn't really the main problem. The main problem, I will say, is the performance of the game. Now, I know there's a lot of people who've talked about this probably, but I want to talk about this in the sense of a PlayStation 5 game, you know, whereas this is technically released for both PC and PS5. So people who play it on PC might have a better experience depending on their performance of the PC itself, you know. So depending on that depends on what you think the performance is. But Black Myth Wukong on the PS5, while on some occasions I really hadn't had any major issues or any major problems, I've had a few random cases in which where, for some reason, the game has struggled a little bit. I've had the game crashed on me twice, technically, and I've really had one other problem, but it didn't really crash, technically. So if you want to, you could say 3 problems. The first problem was whenever it was trying to load in a cutscene. And the cutscene itself, I think based on the size of the character in question and stuff like that, it may have had a problem. It just, during the cutscene, it did stutter and then it just ultimately froze. So I feel like maybe it was just a render problem rather than just like, say, a performance problem, a render problem, depending on how detailed the game is. And this was by far the highest detailed that they can get, including ray tracing and stuff. So it makes sense for why during a cutscene it might have problems. But I did have problems with it crashing twice. Of those 2 times, it was more or less just the menus, which I thought was weird. You would think the main gameplay would be the problem, but no, the gameplay's awesome. It plays perfectly wonderful. And I'm in performance mode, technically. So really, frame rates and stuff like that shouldn't be a problem, technically, you would think. But for some reason, the menus, they have problems. I don't know why. But the first time it crashed was whenever I was going through the menus, and for some reason, even the menus was just kind of having trouble getting to where I wanted to be and stuff like that, to where I can look at items and stuff. And then all of a sudden, it just go boop, and just kind of close out. And then the second time was whenever I was kind of like grinding for items and everything. Because you can grind for mind cores, which are essentially used in order to enhance your pills and stuff. I was grinding and everything like that, and I was going to a shrine to rest and refresh the area and stuff like that. But then for some reason, that made a crash, so I'm not sure why. So in terms of gameplay, performance has been excellent. In terms of like rendering or loading, it might have an issue, actually, in all honesty. And I don't know if it's a PlayStation 5 problem or if it's a game problem. I'm willing to admit it could be both, because even though yes, the PS5 is supposedly supposed to be PC specs, keep in mind too, PCs have probably gotten even better hardware by this point in time, so it's hard to say where the fault comes from. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the gameplay isn't hindered at all, and that's what I love the best, is the fact that the gameplay is not dampered or anything. The gameplay is perfect in my personal opinion, and I absolutely love it. I do want to say a few things about Black Myth Wukong as a side personal note. And you can take this for however way you feel about it, whether it's overly hyped or overly anticipated or something like that, however way you want to look at it. But these are my personal thoughts and opinions about Black Myth Wukong as a whole. I've been hyped for a lot of games. I am not going to deny right now, and I've had to damper my hype level for all of my anticipated games for a long time. And that's only because the hype level tends to be a little bit too much, and it sours the experience. The games weren't bad. In fact, they were still enjoyable. It's just my expectations raised way more than they should have. Black Myth Wukong, I tried to damper my expectations as much as possible, but every time I even have a chance to damper it even more so, it kept getting better and better. And for some reason, my expectation was just, I want to be able to play this game. It seems fun. It's going to be entertaining. But the more and more I hear people talk about it, where it's like, it's going to be an action RPG. It's going to have very difficult bosses, supposedly. There's going to be over 80 bosses. It kept getting me excited more and more. And really, in all honesty, my expectations were well met, in my personal opinion. They were very well met. And there's 2 things that I want to say. One of them is that the game was very familiar in terms of how the game is played out and stuff. And what I mean is, it feels just like Blood Would Tell. Blood Would Tell is my absolute favorite game, next to Kingdom Hearts, of course, mind you. Blood Would Tell is one of my favorite games of all time. So when I say it feels like Blood Would Tell, that's a surprise. You know, Blood Would Tell is a unique game, and one that I don't think we're going to experience for a while, at least until Black Myth Wukong came around. And it felt very familiar to me based on that assumption. You know, where there's a lot of bosses, straightforward, you fight as many bosses as you want, and I love it. It's absolutely wonderful. But also, too, another thing as well that I will say is that Black Myth Wukong is my absolute favorite PS5 game of all time so far, in terms of PlayStation 5 games. And I've played a couple of them, you know, and I would say that there'll be a few that I like a lot as well in terms of PlayStation 5s. For example, Final Fantasy 16, I like that really well. Technically, even though it came out for the PlayStation 4, I got it for the PlayStation 5. Clash, Artifact of Chaos, I absolutely love that one. And there's nothing wrong with Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. I felt like it was a really good game as well. But if I had to say which was my absolute favorite PlayStation 5 game so far that I've got, it would be Black Myth Wukong. I absolutely love that game. For some people, and not every other person, it may be a 4 out of 5. But for me personally, I would give this a 5 out of 5. It's an easy 5 out of 5 in my personal opinion. The only big downfall that I would say that I hate about Black Myth Wukong is the fact there is no physical copy. Not even for PC. It's all just digital. Rather, it's just the collector's edition and stuff like that. The game-wise, it's not physically available. Now, they have stated before that they're going to try to get a physical version out. And I hope they do, because I would love to have a physical copy of Black Myth Wukong. I really love it that much. So, but anyway guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. This is BlackCross sign off. Catch you guys later.